story goes, this river got its name from the Spanish back in the 1590s. They originally called it the San Pedro River or St. Peter's River. If we fast forward a few hundred years, there was a captain, a Texas Ranger captain named Jack Hayes, and upon riding up to it, he asked his men what do they call this river, and upon hearing the name, he said, well, hell, it looks more like the devil's to me. A few of the reasons that Fatty's on the Fly and Fatty's Guide Code likes to do these Devil's River trips is because not only are they mentally and physically challenging, but they're also a ton of fun and they're very, very rewarding. The amount of natural beauty and historic beauty from the petroglyphs at the canyons is unparalleled in the state. Well, this trip's unique because we're taking a group of people that, though many of them have outdoor experience, none of them have multi-day, overnight river experience, which can be a whole different ball game. And I think it's going to be fun to watch these folks kind of connect as they start to sort it out.
So I'm Jahmicah Dawes. I own and operate Slim Pickens Outfitters. We're an outdoor retailer shop in Stephenville, Texas. We're the first Black-owned retailer, outdoor retailer. My relationship with the outdoors is it's a recovering relationship with the outdoors. When I started out in the outdoors early on in life in the Boy Scouts, it was not good. It was not healthy. It was a pretty kind of toxic and oppressive environment. So only here recently, only in the last 5 years have I really been intentional about getting back in the outdoors, kind of challenging myself to new experiences in the outdoors, and I think kind of trusting I think the outdoors and the people that kind of accompany me outdoors.
My name is Helena Hernandez, and I am a shrink. I'm a psychiatric physician assistant. In addition to that, and I think more important, I'm an immigrant. Like, I grew up abroad, was born abroad, and I moved to the United States when I was 19. So I moved here for college, and I guess you could say that I am a first-generation Texan. Texan first before American. I think people would say that I look very indoorsy, but the reality is I'm very outdoorsy. Like, I grew up in a country that has a lot of natural beauty, and my parents were very adventurous people. From a young age, like before I could even walk, I was already taken to the beach swimming. But mostly my relationship to the outdoors before coming to the States and to Texas was the sea. You know, that's what I grew up doing. Swimming, snorkeling, scuba diving, just hanging out. Even among different families and like my neighborhood, like my family was definitely above average outdoorsy. I guess if I could summarize what's my relationship to the outdoors, I would say I'm married to it.
Fatty's does a fly fishing guide trip down the Devil's River. We always start night one at Marlene's Who Cares Bed and Breakfast. If there's one thing that we do the same every single year, it's starting the trip right there. One reason we like to stop at Marlene's is because when we get the group together, we need to do a couple of things. One, get acquainted. Two, we need to do a dry run and make sure that nobody's over or underpacked. Make sure that we have their kayaks packed and balanced in preparation for not only the shuttle, but also for launching on the river that morning. Another thing that we do is have a nice meal, and we typically get it all catered by Casino's Meat Market. My buddy Emilio Morales out of Eagle Pass comes up. He made some homemade roasted chili pekin hot sauce this year, fajitas, made some sausages for the event, and brought all of us his homemade jerky and his protein sticks. They're like Slim Jims, but a hell of a lot better. After dinner, we usually circle up, we go through fly selection, start looking at gear, and figuring out what patterns we're going to be starting the day with and what patterns we need to bring with us on the river to be as successful as possible, targeting these smallmouth South Texas bass. Once we get done with that, and after a few fish tails, we end up packing it in for the night, getting showered up, going to bed, hop up, breakfast with Marlene at 6 a.m. and coffee, Shuttle shows up at 7, and then we're off to the river.
Why did I say yes? Because in my heart, I said no. I'm not a camper. I'm not really very confident, very experienced in kayaking or paddle sports. You know, I think selfishly, I didn't want to look foolish or dumb or like I was not capable. And then again, like I think about my boys, Silas and Finus. I think about how excited they are to see, you know, Daddy go fly fish. And when I think about that, well, when I first started that, I wasn't really confident or capable in that either. And so I said yes because I want them to say yes. And I want people like my brother or my dad. I said yes because this is it was an opportunity, really kind of a lifetime. When would I ever get this opportunity again? I certainly wasn't coming up with an idea to kind of float the Devils. And honestly, every story that I've heard from somebody about the Devils didn't look like me. And so, again, even in that, and again, what I do and what I know, and really kind of what I represent, it still goes to show like, wow, man, you know, all these stories I'm hearing, those stories don't necessarily seem like stories I could relate with, or it's not like a narrative that I would necessarily share. I said yes to hopefully encourage other people like me to say yes to these kinds of opportunities, whether it's the Rio Grande or the Pecos or the Devils, or even just you know, paddling around a lake. It just kind of, you know, one begets another. And so, and also something for me is that the paddling and the camping was kind of like a means to an end, and to me the end was fly fishing. I love fly fishing that much that, like, okay, if I had to paddle to go fly fish, I would do that. And if I had to camp, I might do that. But now I know I can. And now that, like, think about how many more opportunities this opens up, that, like, when something else comes up that I can go fly fishing, but it requires me to camp or requires me to kayak or do any kind of paddle sports, I know that I'm capable. I know that I have a lot to learn. I know I'm going to get stretched, but I also know I'm going to be having an amazing time and make awesome memories, and the fellowship that's both on the river, the fellowship that was here at the campsite, kind of complemented all these things. And so definitely the positives outweigh the negative.
Okay, so I got really lucky. I was telling Ben, you know, this year I really wanted to go kayak camping. And I was talking to people in Stewards, like asking them, you know, does anyone want to go kayak camping, kayak fly fishing? And the response that I would get was, I don't even know where to start. I don't have the gear. And not a lot of people were willing to take the risk. I mean, the time alone and then the commitment to the gear. And then I hadn't heard of the Devils back then. I actually watched a Yeti ad, and then I saw the one about the Devils, and it really intrigued me because it's so remote, and the remoteness of it makes it pristine, makes it beautiful, and that attracts me so much. I like places that are, I wouldn't say just untouched, but it requires payment, effort to get there, like commitment. I just like the beauty of a place that's, I guess I wouldn't say that the Devils isn't popular, but there's not a lot of people here. And I love seeing nature and that raw beauty.
So one thing that Fatty's Guide Co. likes to do when we fire up this trip and first get on the water is we'll run upstream, and there's a spring that's coming out of the side of a cliff, kind of a moss-covered pocket. We all fill our canteens, all fill our Nalgene's, and then slowly start fishing and working our way downstream to Dolan Falls. Dolan Falls is our first major obstacle on the trip. At low flows, it's very easy to see that you need to portage, and by portage we mean stop, get out, oftentimes taking all the gear out of your boat, hauling that down the set of falls, hauling your boat down the set of falls, and then reloading everything. And we usually try to take enough time at Dolan where we can stop, check it out, take some pictures, portage, get a bite to eat, jump off the rocks, and still ensure that we have enough time to get downstream, do a little bit of fishing, and make camp at a reasonable hour. Between Dolan Falls and camp, there's several series of rapids. Some we want to shoot because they're a ton of fun. Sometimes we're not comfortable with them, but no matter what, safety priority number one on these guide trips, and so we've got a crew and a staff that can make sure and take care of you. So night one is interesting with these group trips, this one in particular, because most of the folks and most of the clients that we had with us didn't know each other. There's no cell phone service, there's no checking in with your family and your friends. We have a sat phone, but it's really just in case of emergencies. Once you get to camp, you really kind of get to retell the tales of the day, get to know your campmates a little bit better. By this time, our Camp Jack has already got dinner going, got a fire and our small contained fire pit going, and has a nice hot meal ready to rock and roll, so that when our clients get out of the water, get time to get camp set up, get dried off, they've got a nice hot meal waiting for them, and the sun's still up, so we're not trying to do all this at night. Day two, we wake up. We're still on the big rock island that we slept on that night. Me and the Camp Jack Ben make coffee, and more coffee. When we get done with that, we break camp, get loaded up, and we head off, and we have one of our more strenuous or lengthy sections of fly fishing during the entire trip. When you book a trip with Fatty's Guide Co., if you're coming for something that's species specific, you're probably coming to the wrong crew. This river in particular is very, very dynamic. It's got a ton of diversity. We've got smallmouth bass, largemouth bass, a variety of sunfish or brim. We've got carp, we've got buffalo, we've got gar. And as a general rule of thumb, Fatty's Guide Co. and the Fatty's Guides are going to chase whatever the river gives it. One of the big problems with fishing and trying to fly fish the Devil's River is that for a lot of us, it looks like every square inch or foot of this river looks like some of the fishiest territory you've ever seen. And it's so hard trying to figure out what to leave behind. And typically, we're going to be focusing in on serious structure, a set of riffles, a set of waterfalls, some big riprap, boulders, things like that. So we've got to keep that in mind throughout the day so we can get to camp at a decent hour, get cleaned up, get our camp made, and have dinner ready to rock and roll before the sun goes down, and really enjoy each other's company and kind of the fellowship that happens at camp.
If we as, I don't want to say necessarily gatekeepers, but people who are passionate about the outdoors are not encouraging, are not inviting, welcoming all people outdoors, well, think about that. When people that for the longest time have kind of been the maybe stewards of the gatekeepers of the outdoors are no longer in the majority, well then why would that new majority want to preserve, want to focus, want to conserve the outdoors if they have no relationship to it, or if the relationship they have to it is, again, something of it's uninviting, it's unwelcoming. I think it's vital to the protection, to the conservation of the outdoors, but I think vital to, the education of people that are just kind of waiting to have an experience like this, that have never seen representation like this and in the outdoors, on the Devil's River, and think of what that does to someone when they can see, when they can kind of see themselves there, and kind of have this dream, have this vision of like, man, I'd love to be on that there one day. My hope is that me being on this trip and me getting out of my comfort zone and me flipping over and all that stuff will be an encouragement to somebody else to like, oh yeah, I can do it. And not so much like, well, if he can do it, I can do it, but like, oh, that's what that looks like for someone of color, someone, different orientation, oh, that's what it looks like to be in the outdoors, and specifically in this context on the Devil's River. But again, if we're not inviting more people, and really all people outdoors, then what if this isn't here when they're actually able to do that?
To be honest, I never really thought about how different I am. I mean, the communities that I'm a part of never really made me feel like I was separate. It was only when people would make comments, like I would post on Instagram and people would point out that, oh, you're the only girl there, or, you know, I don't know many Filipinos who hunt and fish, that I realized that, yeah, you know, it's a little bit different. But I think that's the beauty of this community. When you have that shared interest, when you have that shared passion, that's what glues you together. It's not about the clothes that you wear, you know, your skin color, even your political belief. You know, it's that passion for the outdoors that makes you a community. I have thought a little bit about like what it means to be a woman or a minority outdoors, because Jahmicah brought it up, and some people bring it up sometimes. And the way I've seen it influence like my friends, my female friends, is that they're inspired to do more adventurous things because they see me doing it and they think, at first they think, oh, I could never do that. You know, I wouldn't even know where to start. And when they see me doing it, it plants a seed in their head that, oh, okay, maybe Helena can introduce me. And I'm totally open for that. But yeah, honestly, like I've never felt, no one's ever made me feel separate. And I love that, because in certain communities, like they can make you feel separate. In fact, at work, I get questioned a lot for how old I am, but outdoors, that's never a question.
Everybody outside or everyone outdoors to me means essentially the livelihood of not only the lifestyle and the career path that I've chosen, but the longevity of these spaces that we're occupying. If we don't get more people outside, we're going to lose a voice, essentially. The only way to keep places like this in existence as they are is to have more advocates. And I tell you right now, if you haven't been out here and you haven't experienced it, you're not going to be very willing to donate towards it or contribute to it or stand up for it or have a voice for it. And I think the best way that we can get advocacy for these wild spaces that we can all share outside is to bring more people to it. The end of day 2 marks the halfway point in our journey. At this point, we've got to drink from some of the springs that feed the devils. We've got to portage at Dolan Falls, jump off the rocks. We've got to fish some incredible water. We've really got to know each other, which is a big byproduct of this process. And we've eaten like kings. An interesting thing about these trips is that even if you do show up with a group full of strangers, because of the circumstances that we're going through, and the territory and the length of travel that we've got to go through, and the set of obstacles that we've got to share in, by the time you get a day or two on the river, you really, really feel like you've connected with everybody you're there with. And that's what a lot of this is about. And throughout the project, we're trying to figure out what we're going to call it. And I kept having this image. I think we've all been there, like when you're a kid, and whoever's in charge of that day, we're all running around in the house, raising hell. And whoever the guardian is, or mama, says, all right, everybody outside. And we feel like this trip, this experience on the river, and this film project is a very good example of everybody outside. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to part 1 of the Devil's River trip. Tune in next month for part 2. And don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, and share. Any of that? We greatly appreciate it. We'll see you on the river.